really important question now with the completion of the attunement of the river zone in Miami and the creation of MyOtra as the name of the online site, the Cora, that is going to be the digital unit of thought, the image category of electricity. This is all hypothetical, highly experimental, completely provisional, and so the next question is, can this work be replicated? I mean, in principle, it can be replicated. It's falsifiable. It's verifiable. It's transferable. It's portable to other situations, to other people. And so I think it's useful to try to speculate a little bit or to extrapolate from MyOtra and think about other kind of situations. And here's a lesson that we've learned. First of all, I'm using that term situation because what the FRE learned from MyOtra is that a zone is a situation. And what we mean by this, partly the situationists themselves thought about a situation in kind of existential terms. But it's simply the idea that a place is not an empty place. The meaning of Cora is a chaos that's brought into a certain kind of order. And what's that process of ordering that goes on? Well, it's the introduction of a person or a teoria, a group of people, or maybe even a community, an introduction of people into a zone, and the zone already has a tendency. The zone already has a plenitude. It's not empty. There's a culture there. There's a history. There's a geology, if you like. There's nature. There's culture. And it's already underway. It's already dynamic. It's a vortex of interacting forces. And similarly, the person that comes in to study this place or to attest to the attunement, to figure out the mood of it, to discover the order of it, that person is already also underway. That person is already in a situation with a history, with a direction. There's no objectivity, there's no purity, but there's an interaction of forces that's always complex and chaotic. But then there's a sorting out that takes place. Well, how does this sorting out work? There's a couple of challenges, I think, in figuring out how to move on, how to try to test, falsify, or transport the MyOtra into another place, into another Cora. And one of those is, what we figured out from the attunement of Miami was that what we had was one situation. And if we think about or this is the way we're thinking about how to proceed, as I said, is that we want to develop a modern or a contemporary divination system that would relate MyOtra as one situation in a complex interaction of other situations. In the same way that in the I Ching, stagnation is one hexagram, one of 64 germinal situations. So we would just say arbitrarily for the time being, are there 64 zones in America, just to say, or are there 64 zones in the world? Or are there 64 different zones in the world? And the way we're imagining the extension of MyOtra right now is not to impose the attunement of Miami onto other places, but to discover each situation in these different places, and discover those places as situations, that is to say, as dynamic, historically evolving, complex circumstances. How can that be done? Well, the first question is, one of the first questions I have is I'm wondering, one of the puzzling things about the outcome of MyOtra is how much the attunement that the Teoria found is similar to the attunements that we've gotten from artists recording the modern city. from Baudelaire to the Situationists. Because what Baudelaire found in Paris, or right through to Guy Debord, one of the founders of the Situationists in Paris, and indeed Paris is in some ways, as Walter Benjamin said, Paris is the capital of the 19th century. Well, we might want to say even Paris, capital of the first half of the 20th century as well. I mean, it's because Paris is the modern city. It's the city that the poets mapped most fully. But we could take other cities. Dublin, we have James Joyce's Ulysses is a kind of mapping of Dublin as a Cora, or T.S. Eliot in London. And we have other modern cities, Garcia Lorca in New York or something. But what all these poets found is that the modern city is in a condition of paralysis. That there's something about the modern city that puts it into a condition of impasse. And so what we found in Miami was impasse. We found a fundamental aporia, and that's what we were attracted to. That's what the terrorists came up with. And so now what I'm wondering is every city in a condition of impasse? Is this a bad thing? I mean, one of the criticisms of deconstruction as a philosophy and as a methodology is that what it always did was, as a criticism, was locate the point of aporia, locate the point of impasse in a discourse. That is to say, find the point at which the rhetoric and the logic of the discourse fell apart. The point at which, let's say, the seam or the point of stitching, where it was held together by a point de capitone, by an upholstery button, which was the point that revealed the limitation of that place or of that system or of that discourse. So maybe so part of our thinking is, well, that's not a bad thing, but that is just saying, well, we found the structuring point, we found the navel of that universe, so to speak. And so there's a couple of ways of thinking about this. One would be to say, well, we need to attune other zones in order to find out if every city is paralyzed. Is that the condition of every modern city? Is Buffalo? Is New York? Is Los Angeles? Is you name it? Are all these cities paralyzed still? I mean, in other words, are these all modern cities? Joyce's Dublin and so on being the prototype. Or is there a different attunement in every place? Miami is in an impasse, but maybe another city, maybe Boston, is not in an impasse. Maybe it's in some other kind of situation. And whether or not the 64 situations of the I Ching are archetypal for us, or whether there would be some other 64. So both of these things need to be tested. On the one hand, from the point of view of deconstruction, if every city is an impasse, that's fine, in the sense that that would tell us what to do in terms of our attunement. Is the purpose of the attunement would be to find the impasse in every situation. That is, you would go there and you would say, I want to find the point of aporia, because that's the point of impossibility, possibility. That's the point at which, that's the point marking the limit, marking the fragment point, marking the point of vulnerability, marking the point of incompletion, that is then magically tied together in the loosest possible way, the weakest possible way of that identity category, of that nation, of that community. And what we know from our methodologies is that the point of impasse is also a point of moving in another way, moving in a different direction. So you have to find the point of impossibility in order to know what your border is, and then you can rethink. That's the way in which the category becomes rethought. So one possibility would be to take the impasse, that's the purpose of every encounter,